The first time my neighbor admitted he had been checking my private messages, he didn't even realize he was confessing. And I swear, in that exact moment, my heart didn't just drop, it felt exposed. My name is Samuel. I'm 25. I live alone in a small apartment building where the walls are thin and privacy is mostly an illusion. Or at least that's what I learned the hard way. Gregory moved in next door about 3 months ago. He was 27, worked from home in IT security, ironic, right? And had this quiet, observant energy about him. Not shy exactly, just reserved. The kind of guy who doesn't say much, but when he does, it's specific, precise, like he's been collecting data before speaking. We met in the hallway on move-in day. He was carrying 2 boxes stacked way too high, almost ran into me, and muttered, "Sorry. I swear I'm not usually this uncoordinated." I laughed. "You moved in alone. That's brave." "Or stupid," he replied. That was our beginning. At first, it was casual neighbor stuff. Small talk at the mailbox. Complaints about the elevator. One night the power went out in the whole building, and we ended up sitting in my living room with candles and takeout because neither of us had anything better to do. That night, we actually talked. About work. About dating. About how exhausting it is pretending you don't care when you do. I didn't tell him everything, but I opened up more than I usually would with someone I'd just met. He listened. Really listened. And I liked that. We started hanging out more after that. Gym sessions. Watching games. Random late-night conversations in sweatpants and socks, sitting cross-legged on my couch. Somewhere along the way, I started feeling comfortable around him. Too comfortable. Because I never noticed when the dynamic shifted. It happened gradually. Gregory started knowing things. Little things at first. He'd say, "That guy you're texting again?" Even though my phone screen was facing down. Or, "Still talking to the marketing guy?" I'd blink. "Yeah, how'd you know?" "You mentioned him." Maybe I had. At least that's what I told myself. Until one Friday night. We were on my couch, both scrolling on our phones. I was texting someone from a dating app. Nothing serious. Just flirting. The kind of conversation that's fun, but meaningless. I smiled at something the guy wrote. Gregory glanced over. "Red flag," he asked casually. "No, just complicated." He smirked. "Yeah, guys who say they're emotionally available, but still live with their ex usually are." Everything inside me froze. I turned to him slowly. "What did you just say?" He shrugged. "I mean, it's common." "No," I said quietly. That's exactly what he wrote. Word for word. Silence. Gregory didn't look at me. He just stared at the TV like he'd suddenly become deeply invested in the commercials. "You saw my screen?" I asked. "No." "Then how do you know?" He hesitated. Just for a second. But that second was enough. "I guessed," he said. I let it go. But something had cracked. Over the next week, I started paying attention. He reacted to things I hadn't told him yet. He'd bring up topics from conversations I'd had privately with friends. Once, he even said, "You really shouldn't quit your job without another offer lined up." I never told him I was considering quitting. I'd only told my best friend over text. That was the moment my stomach turned. Because it stopped feeling like coincidence. It started feeling like intrusion. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I tested him. One night, while he was over, I sent my friend a message. "I think I might move to another city next month." It wasn't true. I just wanted to see. Gregory didn't look at my phone. He didn't react right away. But 10 minutes later, out of nowhere, he said, "You'd hate starting over somewhere else." My pulse started pounding. "Why would you say that?" He shrugged, too casual. "You don't like change." I stared at him. "You've been reading my messages, haven't you?" The room went quiet in a way that felt heavy. Gregory's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. And somehow, that silence was worse than any confession. "Gregory," I said, my voice lower now. "How do you know things I never told you?" He finally looked at me. And for the first time since I'd met him, he didn't look calm. He looked cornered. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," he said quietly. That wasn't a denial. "I asked you a question," I replied. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across my living room like he was arguing with himself. Then he stopped and said the words that made my chest tighten. "I might have checked some of your messages." The world felt suddenly smaller. "You might have." I repeated. He swallowed. "I know your Wi-Fi password. You gave it to me the first week I moved in. I work in cybersecurity, Sam. I know how to access shared network traffic." I stared at him like I didn't recognize him. "You hacked me." "No, not hacked. You invaded my privacy." His voice dropped. I just wanted to know if you were talking to someone seriously. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. Why? That question hung there. Heavy. Because I think, deep down, I already knew the answer. Gregory looked at me for a long second and quietly said, because I didn't want to lose you before I had a chance. Everything inside me shifted. Anger, betrayal, confusion, and something else. Something dangerous. Because the truth was, I didn't know if I was more upset that he violated my privacy, or that part of me cared why he did it. The air in my apartment felt heavy after that. I didn't want to lose you before I had a chance. Gregory's words just sat there. I stared at him, trying to process what I was feeling. Anger, obviously. That was the loudest one. My privacy had been violated. Not accidentally. Not carelessly. Deliberately. You had a chance, I said finally. My voice was steady, but only barely. You could have just talked to me. He let out a quiet breath, almost like a laugh without humor. It's not that simple. It's actually very simple, I shot back. You don't spy on someone you care about. His jaw tightened. I didn't think of it as spying. I blinked. Then what did you think it was? Information, he said. Context. I needed to know where I stood. That stung more than I expected. You don't get to hack into my life because you're insecure. I didn't hack you, he insisted. I monitored open network traffic. It's not illegal if it's unsecured. Are you seriously turning this into a technical debate? He stopped talking. Good. Because if he'd kept going, I might have actually thrown him out right then. I crossed my arms. How long? Silence. Gregory. A few weeks, he admitted quietly. My stomach twisted. A few weeks. I repeated. So every conversation I've had. Not every, he cut in quickly. Just sometimes. When I saw certain apps active, my heart dropped lower. You track my apps too? I could see encrypted traffic spikes. I didn't read everything word for word. That's not the point. My voice echoed in the room. He flinched slightly. I'd never seen him react like that before. And that's when I noticed something else. He looked ashamed. Not defensive. Not arrogant. Ashamed. I know I messed up, he said quietly. I crossed a line. You obliterated the line. I panicked, he replied. You were talking to other guys. Going on dates. And I kept thinking, if I just knew what they were saying, maybe I'd know if I even had a chance. I stared at him. You don't get to control that. I wasn't trying to control you. You were trying to control the outcome. That shut him up again. The silence stretched between us. Thick. Complicated. And beneath the anger, beneath the betrayal, there was something I didn't want to admit. Because he wasn't jealous like someone territorial. He was jealous like someone scared. That didn't excuse it, but it complicated it. Why didn't you just tell me how you felt? I asked quietly. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. Because you seemed happy. With who? With anyone who wasn't me. That hit harder than I expected. I exhaled slowly. You don't get to decide how I feel without asking. I know. And you don't get to invade my privacy because you're afraid. I know. His voice wasn't defensive anymore. It was low. Honest. I've never done anything like this before, he continued. I don't usually care this much. That wasn't romantic. It was raw. And I hated that it made my chest tighten. You realize, I said carefully, that this makes it hard to trust you. I know, he repeated. And trust is kind of the bare minimum. He nodded. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he said something that shifted everything again. I deleted everything. What? The monitoring tools. The scripts. I wiped them the second you confronted me. I narrowed my eyes. Before I confronted you? He hesitated. No. After you asked if I was reading your messages. So he had known I was onto him. You were waiting for me to figure it out? I said. I was hoping you wouldn't. At least he was honest. I walked toward the window, running a hand over my face. Part of me wanted to kick him out. Slam the door. Change the Wi-Fi password. Block him everywhere. But another part of me, the honest part, kept replaying the way he said, I didn't want to lose you before I had a chance. Did you read anything personal? I asked without turning around. Yes, he said. That hurt. Did you judge me? No. Did you laugh? Never. His answer came instantly that time. I turned back to him. Then what did you feel? He swallowed. Jealous. Scared. And stupid. The room felt smaller again. You know what the worst part is? I said quietly. He shook his head. I might have given you a chance. His expression shifted. What? If you just told me you liked me, I continued, instead of acting like my emotional surveillance system. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. You would have, he asked. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. I like being around you. I just didn't know this version of you existed. The version that makes terrible decisions? The version that cares enough to make terrible decisions. He gave a weak huff of a laugh. That's not flattering. It's not supposed to be. Silence again. But this one felt different. Less explosive. More unresolved. So what now? He asked quietly. That was the question, wasn't it? Because trust, once cracked, doesn't magically fix itself. And attraction doesn't magically disappear either. I looked at him. You don't get access to me until I decide you've earned it back. He nodded immediately. Okay. No more monitoring. No accidental guesses. No games. Okay. And if I find out you're lying to me again? You won't. The certainty in his voice made me pause. He wasn't defensive. He was determined. I walked closer to him, stopping just a foot away. You hurt me, I said softly. I know, but I don't want you out of my life. His breath hitched slightly. I don't want to lose you either, he replied. There it was again. Not possession, not control. Fear of losing something that hadn't even fully begun. And maybe that scared me more than the hacking. Because this wasn't simple anymore. This was two grown men, both over 21, both capable of making mistakes, standing in my living room, trying to figure out if something broken could still become something real. I stepped back. You should go home, I said. He nodded. At the door, he paused. I'm sorry, Samuel. This time, he said my name like it mattered. After he left, I locked the door, changed my Wi-Fi password, sat on the couch, and stared at my phone. Because the strangest part? I wasn't wondering if he'd read my messages anymore. I was wondering what he would have said if he'd just asked instead. The next morning felt weirdly normal. That was the worst part. Sunlight through the blinds. Coffee brewing. My phone buzzing with work emails. Everything looked exactly the same. Except now I knew the guy next door had been secretly reading parts of my digital life. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept replaying the conversation. The way Gregory looked when he admitted it. The way he didn't try to justify it once I pushed past the technical nonsense. And the way my chest tightened when he said he didn't want to lose me. I hated that part. Because anger would have been easier. At around 10 a.m., I heard movement in the hallway. His door opening. Closing. Footsteps. Normally, I wouldn't even notice. Now, every sound felt amplified. My phone buzzed. Gregory, I won't come over. Just wanted to say again, I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a full minute. No excuses. No pressure. Just that. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my Wi-Fi settings again just to make sure the password had changed properly. I even restarted the router like I was performing some kind of emotional cleanse. It helped a little, but trust doesn't reboot that easily. That evening, I went out with a friend. Not a date, just drinks. I needed outside perspective. I didn't tell him the full story, just that someone close to me had crossed a privacy line. Did he apologize? My friend asked. Yes. Did he own it? Yes. Is he a bad person? I hesitated. No. Then it's about whether you can rebuild trust, not whether he deserves forgiveness. That stuck with me, because Gregory didn't feel malicious. He felt scared, and stupid, and human. Still, that didn't mean I could just ignore it. When I got home, his lights were on. I stood in my hallway for a second before knocking on his door. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because unresolved tension feels worse than confrontation. He opened the door almost immediately, like he'd been near it. Hey, he said quietly. Hey. Neither of us moved for a second. Then he stepped aside. Do you want to come in? I nodded. His apartment looked exactly like mine. Same layout, slightly different furniture. But it felt more controlled. Cleaner. Organized. Predictable. Gregory shut the door behind me. I haven't touched anything, he said immediately. Network-wise, I don't even have the tools installed anymore. I didn't come here to audit you, I replied. He gave a small, nervous nod. We stood in the middle of his living room like two people who didn't know whether they were about to fight or confess something bigger. I've been thinking, I said. Okay, what you did wasn't just about jealousy. He swallowed. It was about control, I continued. You wanted certainty. He didn't argue. I hate uncertainty, he admitted quietly, especially when it comes to people. Why? He hesitated. Then, for the first time since I'd known him, he let the guard down completely. My last relationship ended because I didn't see it coming. I thought everything was fine. He was already emotionally somewhere else, and I had no idea. That doesn't justify this. I know. I'm just trying to understand. He nodded slowly. I promised myself I'd never be blindsided like that again, he continued. And when you started going on dates, I felt it happening again. That fear, like I was about to lose something I hadn't even gotten to try for. The honesty in his voice made it hard to stay purely angry. You can't prevent loss by controlling information, I said softly. I know. You just create new reasons to lose someone. He looked down at that. Silence stretched between us. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest all day. If you hadn't read anything, what would you have done? He looked up at me. I would have asked you out. Why didn't you? Because I didn't know if I stood a chance. That's not how chances work. A small, humorless smile crossed his face. I'm aware of that now. I exhaled. Do you like me? I asked directly. He didn't hesitate this time. Yes. The word was steady, grounded, not dramatic, just true. And not because you monitored me, I added. No, he said immediately. Before that. That's why I started looking in the first place. There it was again. The vulnerability. I stepped closer. You hurt me, I said. I know. And I'm not over it. I don't expect you to be. But I also don't want to pretend this didn't come from something real. His eyes softened slightly. So what does that mean? He asked carefully. It means, I said slowly, that if there's any version of this where we try something, it has to start clean. Clean. No secrets. No tech games. No paranoia. He nodded quickly. Okay. And you don't get reassurance through surveillance. I won't, he said. No hesitation. I searched his face for doubt. There wasn't any. Just focus. You get reassurance the normal way, I continued. How's that? You ask. He let out a breath that almost sounded like relief. Then can I ask something now? I raised an eyebrow. Are you still talking to the marketing guy from Cluj? I stared at him. He held up his hands immediately. Not like that. I swear. I need to know if I'm too late. I felt something shift in my chest. No, I said. I'm not. The way his shoulders relaxed at that answer told me more than anything else could. And Gregory? I added. Yeah. If I find out you ever invade my privacy again. You won't, he said firmly. I held his gaze. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I believed him. He stepped a little closer. Not touching, just close enough to feel the tension change. Can I ask something else? He said. Depends. Can I take you on an actual date? Not monitoring. Not observing. Not predicting. Asking. I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I said, yes, but you're earning it. The smallest smile pulled at his lips. Fair. And somehow, standing there in his apartment, after betrayal, after anger, after confession, it didn't feel like control anymore. It felt like a choice. Our first date was awkward. Not bad. Just loaded. Gregory picked a small restaurant about 10 minutes from our building, neutral territory. Not my place. Not his. Somewhere that didn't carry the weight of routers and broken trust. He showed up exactly on time. No hoodie. No sweats. Just dark jeans and a simple black shirt that fit him a little too well. He looked nervous. Controlled, but nervous. Hi, he said, like we hadn't just had the most complicated week of our lives. Hi. For a second, we both smiled like idiots. Then we sat down. The first 10 minutes were painfully normal. Work updates. Traffic complaints. The waiter interrupting at all the wrong moments. But underneath it, there was something fragile. Rebuilding mode. Halfway through dinner, I leaned back in my chair and said, so, no monitoring tonight. He almost choked on his water. Jesus, Samuel. What? I shrugged. Just checking. He wiped his mouth, then looked at me seriously. No, I don't even want to think about it. I deleted everything. Factory reset my laptop. Reset my network settings. I even disabled packet analysis tools I use for work. That made me pause. You didn't have to go that far. I did, he said quietly. For me, that hit differently. Because that wasn't about impressing me. That was about correcting himself. You scared me, I admitted. I know. I don't like feeling exposed. His expression softened. You shouldn't have to, he said. Especially not with someone who cares about you. The word hung there again. Cares. It still felt fragile. After dinner, we walked home together. Not touching, just close enough that our shoulders almost brushed. At the building entrance, he stopped. I don't want to rush this, he said. Not after everything. Good, I replied. Because I don't trust you completely yet. He nodded. No defensiveness. I'll earn it, he said simply. And then he did something that surprised me. Instead of trying to kiss me, he stepped back. "Good night, Samuel," and left first. That restraint, that mattered more than any grand gesture. The next few weeks were slow, deliberately slow. We kept seeing each other. Coffee dates, movie nights, walks, conversations that felt deeper now, less guarded. But there were moments, moments where the past still hovered. One night, I was on my phone while he was over, just scrolling. Nothing serious. I felt him glance at it. My body tensed automatically. He noticed, and instead of leaning closer, he leaned back. "Sorry," he said quietly. Habit of looking at screens. I studied him for a second. "You don't have to apologize for looking," I said carefully. "Just don't try to read." "I won't." The way he said it, steady, certain, slowly started patching something inside me. Trust doesn't rebuild in one dramatic scene. It rebuilds in small, consistent behaviors. Like him never asking who I was texting. Like him not reacting when my phone buzzed at midnight. Like him choosing to ask directly instead of assume. One evening, about a month after the confession, we were back in my apartment. Same couch. Same position as the night everything exploded. Except this time, there was no tension about secrets. Just tension. The other kind. He was sitting close. Not touching. Just close enough that I could feel his warmth. "You know," he said quietly, "there's something I've been thinking about." "That sounds dangerous." He huffed softly. "Probably." I looked at him. "What?" He hesitated, which was rare for him now. "When I was reading your messages," he began carefully, "I wasn't just looking for competition." My chest tightened slightly. "I was looking for signs you might like me." I didn't interrupt. "I kept hoping you'd text someone about me. Mention me. Anything." I swallowed. "And did I?" I asked. He nodded faintly. "Yeah." That surprised me. "What did I say?" "You told your friend I was." Weirdly intense, but kind of hard to ignore. I groaned softly. "That's embarrassing." "It wasn't," he said. It was the first time I felt hopeful. There was no arrogance in his voice. Just honesty. "And now?" I asked. "Now I don't need to look," he said. "Because I can just ask." He turned toward me fully then. "Do you like me?" The question was simple. Direct. No surveillance. No guessing. I looked at him. And for the first time, I didn't feel guarded. "Yes," I said. Something in his shoulders relaxed. "Good," he murmured. And then he did ask something else. "Can I kiss you?" No grabbing. No assumption. Just permission. I held his gaze for a second. Then I nodded. "Yes." When he leaned in, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It felt earned. Careful at first. Testing. Like we were both aware that this moment meant more because of what we'd gone through. His hand hovered near my waist before resting there. Light. Grounding. Asking without words. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel watched. I felt chosen. When we pulled back slightly, he rested his forehead against mine. "I'm not going to mess this up again," he said quietly. "You don't get surveillance privileges anymore," I replied. A soft laugh escaped him. "Fair." I exhaled slowly. "You know what's ironic?" "What?" "You work in cybersecurity." He groaned. "I know. Worst branding ever." I smiled faintly. "But maybe this is better," I added. "Better how?" "Now you actually have to trust something without analyzing it." He looked at me like that sentence hit somewhere deep. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I do." And standing there, in the same apartment where everything almost fell apart, it didn't feel like a broken start anymore. It felt like two adults, 21 plus, flawed, stubborn, human, choosing to try again. Without scripts. Without monitoring. Just us. The first night Gregory stayed over after everything. I didn't tell him he could. He just didn't leave. We were on my couch again, legs tangled this time, the movie long forgotten. It was past midnight, the city quiet outside, and neither of us seemed in a hurry to break the moment. "Are you tired?" he asked softly. "Not really." He nodded once, like he was processing something. "Can I stay?" There it was again. Asking. Not assuming. Not positioning himself like he belonged. Just asking. "Yes," I said. And that felt bigger than it should have. We got into my bed carefully, like we were both aware this wasn't just about sleeping. There was history here now. Mistakes. Repair. Permission. He lay on his back at first, staring at the ceiling like he was trying not to accidentally cross a line. "You don't have to freeze," I muttered. "I'm trying to behave." "You're allowed to move." He turned slightly toward me. "Are you sure?" "Yes." His hand brushed my arm slowly, deliberately. Not testing boundaries, checking them. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm okay." The way he kept checking in should have annoyed me. Instead, it made something in my chest feel steady. Because before, he'd tried to control outcomes silently. Now he was choosing vulnerability out loud. There's a difference. A week later, something small happened that told me everything I needed to know. I was in the shower. My phone buzzed twice on the counter. Gregory was in the kitchen making coffee. Old me would have thought nothing of it. New me felt a flicker of tension. When I stepped out, towel around my waist, I saw him sitting at the table. My phone was right there, untouched. I didn't look, he said immediately, without me asking. I blinked. I wasn't accusing you. I know, he replied quietly. I just didn't want you wondering. That hit harder than I expected. He wasn't afraid of getting caught anymore. He was afraid of making me doubt him. Trust rebuilding in real time. I walked over, picked up my phone, glanced at the messages. Work. Spam. Nothing important. Then I looked at him. You could have, I said. I know. But you didn't. No. Silence stretched between us for a second. Then I stepped closer and kissed him. Not because he passed a test, but because he chose not to take one. We talked more about boundaries after that. Not in a dramatic way. Just practical. No shared passwords. No accidental tech access. If you're insecure, you say it. If I'm distant, I explain it. It felt almost clinical at times. But healthy isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's just clear. One night, about 2 months in, we were sitting on his balcony. City lights below us. Late summer air. Quiet. Can I tell you something honest? He asked. That depends how scary it is. He huffed softly. Scary for me. Okay. I still get the urge sometimes. My stomach tightened slightly. To check. I asked. He nodded once. But I don't act on it. I studied him carefully. That's important. I know, he said. I just don't want to pretend the impulse disappeared. That's actually better, I replied. He looked at me, confused. It means you're aware of it, I continued. Which means you can choose differently. He let out a slow breath. I hate that I wired myself like that. You're not wired like that, I said quietly. You were scared. And now you're learning. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked something softer. Do you trust me? The question wasn't defensive. It was careful. I trust the version of you who stands here and admits impulses instead of hiding them, I said. That's not a full yes. It's honest. He nodded. I'll take honest. The irony still wasn't lost on me. A cybersecurity specialist who had to learn emotional transparency the hard way. A guy who once tried to monitor me, now asking permission before even borrowing my charger. Growth looks strange sometimes, but it was real. One evening, months later, I caught him staring at me while I was texting. Something on my face? I asked. He smirked faintly. No, I was just thinking. Dangerous again. Yeah. He shifted closer. You know what's crazy? What? If I had just asked you out the first week I moved in, none of this would have happened. I laughed softly. Probably. I almost did, he admitted. The night the power went out. That was our meet cute moment. I know. I ruined it. You complicated it, I corrected. He smiled faintly at that. Do you regret giving me a chance? He asked. The question was quiet. Vulnerable. I didn't answer immediately. I thought about the anger, the betrayal, the weeks of careful rebuilding. Then I thought about the restraint, the honesty, the way he now looked at me instead of my screen. No, I said finally. His shoulders dropped slightly, like he'd been bracing for impact. But, I added. He groaned. There's always a but. If you ever do anything like that again, I won't rebuild twice. His expression turned serious. I won't, he said. Not defensive. Certain. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I didn't feel like I needed to monitor him back. That's when I knew something real had shifted. Because trust isn't the absence of temptation. It's the choice not to act on it. And Gregory, the guy who once tried to secure certainty through code, was finally learning to live without it. With me. It happened on a random Thursday. The kind of day that doesn't feel important until it becomes important. I was at work when Gregory texted me. Can we talk tonight? That message. Short. Neutral. Dangerous. My stomach tightened immediately. About. I replied. Just something I should have told you earlier. That was worse. By the time I got home, my brain had already invented 10 worst-case scenarios. Old scripts. Hidden accounts. Some delayed confession that would undo months of rebuilding. He was sitting on my couch when I walked in. Not pacing. Not avoiding eye contact. Just sitting there, hands clasped together. Hey, he said. Hey. I dropped my keys slowly. What's going on? He inhaled once, steadying himself. My ex contacted me. There it was. Something sharp flickered in my chest. When? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Yesterday. And you're telling me now? Yes. I watched him carefully. Okay. He nodded, like he expected more anger. He emailed me. Gregory continued. Not text. Not social media. Email. What did he say? He apologized. Of course he did. They always apologize, I muttered. Gregory's mouth twitched faintly, but his eyes stayed serious. He said he handled things badly, that he regrets how it ended, that he's been thinking about me, and that he'd like to talk. The word talk felt loaded. And do you? I asked. He didn't hesitate. No. That answer came clean. Immediate. Then why are we talking about it? I asked carefully. Because 6 months ago, I would have hidden this. That stopped me. I would have replied secretly, he continued. I would have monitored his social media. I would have tried to gather information before deciding anything. He swallowed. And now I'm telling you immediately. There it was again. Growth doesn't look dramatic. It looks like transparency. Did you respond? I asked. No. Do you want to? He shook his head. I don't miss him, Gregory said quietly. I miss who I thought he was. That hit deeper than I expected. And I don't want unresolved ghosts interfering with something real, he added. I walked closer, studying him. You're sure this isn't about closure? He held my gaze. I got closure the day I realized I deserved honesty. That one landed. Because that was the irony, wasn't it? He'd once violated my privacy because he was afraid of being blindsided. Now he was choosing transparency even when he didn't have to. Can I see the email? I asked. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I wanted to test something in myself. He handed me his phone without hesitation. No hovering. No explanation. Just trust. I read it. It was exactly what he said. Regret. Nostalgia. An opening door. I handed the phone back. You're not tempted? I asked honestly. He paused. Just a second. I'm human, he admitted. It's validating when someone who left you suddenly wants back in. That was real. But validation isn't the same as wanting them, he added. I watched him carefully. You don't owe him anything, I said. I know. And you don't owe me proof either. I know, he repeated softly. But I owe you honesty. That sentence shifted something inside me. Because months ago, honesty had been the missing piece. Delete it, I said. He blinked. What? Delete the email. Not as a command. As a choice. He didn't ask why. He opened his phone. Deleted it. Closed the app. Set the phone down. Done. No dramatic speech. No hesitation. Just done. I stepped closer. Why didn't you reply? I asked quietly. Gregory's voice softened. Because the first time I felt like I was losing something real. I panicked and made terrible decisions. He looked at me steadily. I'm not repeating that. The weight of that hit me. You're not losing me, I said. I know, he replied. But I'm not risking you either. Silence settled between us. Not tense. Just reflective. Then he said something that caught me off guard. I don't want to be the guy who monitors what he's afraid to ask. That was it. That was the real change. Not deleting tools. Not factory resets. Not promises. Perspective. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him. He froze for half a second, still not fully used to being chosen first, and then relaxed into it. You did good. I murmured against his shoulder. He let out a slow breath. I almost didn't tell you, he admitted. Why? Because I didn't want you thinking I was entertaining it. I don't need perfection, I said quietly. I need transparency. He nodded against me. I can do that. And for the first time since his confession months ago, I realized something. Trust isn't built when nothing tests it. It's built when something does. And this time, he didn't choose control. He chose me. It's funny how trust works. You think you're the stable one, the calm one, until the insecurity shifts sides. Because after Gregory deleted that email, after he chose transparency without hesitation, something uncomfortable surfaced in me. He had proven himself, but I hadn't examined myself. It started small. We were at a bar with some of his coworkers, the first time I'd really stepped into his world instead of him stepping into mine. They were loud, confident, teasing him about finally bringing someone around. And I noticed something I hadn't before. Gregory in his element. Relaxed. Charming. Funny. A version of him I hadn't fully seen. And people noticed him. One of his coworkers, tall, clean-cut, the type who smiles like he knows it works, leaned a little too close while they were talking. Nothing dramatic. Just proximity. Gregory didn't react, didn't move away, didn't lean in either. Just normal. But something sharp twisted in my chest. I hated it immediately, because now I understood something ugly. The urge to control doesn't start as control. It starts as fear. When we got home, I was quieter than usual. "You okay?" Gregory asked. "Yeah." He didn't buy it. "Samuel." I sighed, dropping onto the couch. "That guy from your office," I said. "Which one?" "The one who thinks he's subtle." Gregory blinked once, then understood. "Evan." "Sure." He sat down next to me. "What about him?" I hesitated. And there it was. The temptation. The voice that whispers, "Just check his phone. Just confirm there's nothing there." I swallowed it down. I didn't like how close he stood. I admitted. Gregory studied me carefully. "You think I liked it?" he asked gently. "I don't know." He leaned back slightly, giving me space instead of pressing forward. "Do you want to see my messages?" he asked. The offer hit me unexpectedly. "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." Because this was the moment. The exact crossroad he'd stood at months ago. Control or trust. "I don't want access," I said slowly. "I want reassurance." He nodded once. "I'm not interested in him," Gregory said plainly. "Or anyone else in that room." You didn't move away. I didn't want to make it awkward at a work event. "Fair." I didn't lean in either, he added quietly. That was also true. I exhaled. "You know what the messed up part is?" I said. "What?" "I understand now how you spiraled." His expression softened. "It's not a good feeling." "No," I agreed. "It's not." Silence settled between us. Not tense, just honest. Then Gregory did something simple. He reached for my hand. Not possessive, not defensive, grounded. "I don't want you guessing," he said quietly. "Ask me." So I did. "Are you happy with me?" "Yes." "Are you tempted by him?" "No." "Would you tell me if you were?" "Yes." The answers were steady, immediate, no hesitation, and something inside me unclenched. Because this was what we were supposed to do from the beginning. Not monitor, not analyze, just ask. Later that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and let the irony wash over me. Gregory had once violated my privacy because he was afraid of losing something he hadn't even secured. Now I'd stood at the edge of that same instinct and chosen differently. "Hey," I murmured into the dark. "Yeah, I almost understood you too well tonight." He shifted closer. "That's not something I'm proud of," he said softly. "I know, but you didn't act on it." "No." His fingers traced lightly along my arm. "That's the difference," he said. And he was right. Growth isn't about never feeling insecure. It's about what you do when you are. A few days later, I did something I never thought I would have done months ago. I gave him my phone. Not unlocked. Just placed it in his hand. He looked confused. "What's this?" "Nothing," I said. "Just noticing I don't feel like I need to guard it." He stared at it for a second, then handed it back. "I don't need it," he said. And that meant more than if he'd looked. Looking back, I sometimes think about how this could have gone differently. If I'd reacted purely with anger. If he'd doubled down instead of apologizing. If either of us had chosen control over conversation again. We would have lost something before it ever had a chance to exist. Instead, we learned the hard way. He learned that surveillance isn't security. I learned that insecurity isn't a crime, but acting on it without honesty is. And somewhere between deleted scripts and awkward first dates, we built something cleaner than how we started. Now, months later, Gregory still works in cybersecurity, still analyzes networks, still notices everything. But when it comes to me, he doesn't monitor. He asks. And when my phone buzzes late at night, he doesn't glance over. He just pulls me closer and says, "You good?" And I answer honestly. Because that's what this became. Not perfect, not spotless, but real and earned.